helmet that he's got on his head. You can see he's got horns. All the buffalo have horns, the females and the males, but only the males have got that big helmet on top of the head that go with the horns. It's a very pleasant temperature at the moment, but the sun is about to set now. Now, Brian is on camera, everybody. My name is James, and behind us, I don't want to move the car because it might give them a fright, but there's a female you can see behind us, and you might just be able to make out the fact that she doesn't have a helmet. You can see she's got nice shiny horns there. That means she's healthy, but you can see she doesn't have that big helmet on the top of her head. You can see her as one of the only animals that are able to eat the dry grass. You can see how dry that grass is. You can see her carrying a piece of dry grass. And one of the only animals that are able to eat such dry grass are the African buffalo. And remember, not the same as a water buffalo. And a water buffalo, of course, is found in Asia. And you can ask a teacher where Asia is. Let's go across to Jamie. She's my friend, and she's on the other part of the reserve. She's looking at our most common antelope, the impala.
Good afternoon and welcome to the students at Rosemont School. It is wonderful to have you all on board, and I hope that you have been enjoying your safari so far. And I've stopped at one of our most common antelope species because at the moment they've been doing something very interesting, and I'll tell you about that in 1 second. But just to introduce myself, my name is Jamie, and behind me, operating the camera and showing you all of these amazing scenes, is Wiem. We also sometimes call him the wildebeest. That's his nickname. And we've got a whole herd of impala walking across a big open clearing. The reason they're behaving quite interestingly right now is because it is mating season for them. So the males are chasing the females all around, making sure that they stay together in the group and making sure that all of the other males stay away. And although they might be our most common antelope, I also think that they are one of our most beautiful. These are all females. Only the male impala has horns. So the boy impala has horns, the girls do not. And that's because they don't need them. They don't need to use them to fight. And they'd much rather rely on running away from any predators rather than standing and fighting. About the most common bird, there is a hornbill that's about to come out onto the road. There he is there, hopping along with his tail in the air and his bright red beak. Oh, run, 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 run. That is a red-billed hornbill. Oh, and he got a fright. The other birds scared him a bit. As we go and search for more wonderful things to show you, Jasmine, you were wondering what it's like being with all of the animals. And Jasmine, I think I must be probably one of the luckiest people in all the world because I get to see animals each and every single day of my life, and I get to spend time watching them behave just as they would normally, even if I wasn't there. I think that is my favorite thing about this, and I feel lucky each and every single day, whether it's watching the most common antelope, the impala, or if it's sitting with a herd of elephants. And sometimes it's sad, because sad things happen in the wild every now and again, but mostly it's happy, and sometimes it can be a little bit scary, but most of the time it is just really, really exciting, just waiting to see what they're going to do next. And because it's all wild, it means that although we can guess at what the animal's going to do next, we never really know, and sometimes they do such unexpected things that it takes us completely by surprise. Alright, I hope everybody's sitting nice and tight. It can get a bit bumpy out here. We've got lots and lots of different animal characters that we have got to know and we've got to love, because of course some of the animals are territorial or live in the same spot. And Cami, you were wondering whether or not we get to name the animals. Sometimes, yes, we absolutely do. Now, some of the animals already had names when we started working here, and some of them are named by the other guides who work in this area. So, for example, there is a leopard that is known as the Queen of Djuma, and her name is Karula, which means peace or peaceful. She is 12 years old, and the people who've been watching these safaris for years have come to know and love her. And then we've had a really nice chance to name the different hyenas of the hyena clan, which is also very special. And that's a combination of us and our audience, the people who watch all across the globe. They've also had a chance to name some of the animals. And then if there's a special character, for example, there is an impala that we have called Nelson. And we've named him Nelson, and we always know it's him because he only has one horn and one eye. We call him Nelson the impala, and we see him very regularly. Let's go across to James, who has a different antelope for you. This one is a little bit fluffier.
So everybody, this is one of 9 antelope species that we get here, and you can see she can hear me calling, and her fur has got very long as the weather has got colder. I've been away for the last little while, and that's called a waterbuck. And that's a female waterbuck, and I'm just going to slowly roll forward. I don't want to give... Ooh, she got a fright already. They're very nervous, you know. The animals out here, just like in most wilderness areas where there are lots of predators, they're very nervous. They're constantly looking and listening and smelling to see if there are any predators around. Now what we're going to do is go around the corner. I've got a very special sight to show you. Everybody should see this live one day. So one day I hope that you'll be able to come out here and experience what I'm going to show you for yourselves. Just a little bit up the road here. Here we go. There's a wee, you can't really see it from here. Shall I go back a bit, Brian?
That's fine.
There, everybody, is an African sunset. Now you'll see hundreds and hundreds of pictures of those over the time that you're on planet Earth. But I would ask you to do yourself a favor one day and tell your parents you want to come and see one for real, because when you see the great big African sun setting like that behind the western horizon, it makes you feel very special. All the way from the toes to the tip of your head and all the way down to your fingers, you feel a little tingling sensation when you see an African sunset like that. Isn't that nice, Brian? So everybody, what I want you to do now is to breathe in deeply through your nose. Go. And pretend you're in Africa, and you'll feel just as good as Brian and I feel right now. Isn't that nice? Now Nathan, you had a question. You wanted to know how or why we scare the animals. Well, Nathan, what happens is, how do we not scare the animals? Well, we have to move very carefully around them. Now, I don't know if you've been around animals much, or if you've seen a bird in your garden, perhaps at home, but if you were to approach a bird, how would you approach it if you didn't want it to fly away? You would move very, very slowly towards it. You wouldn't make any noise at all, and you'd want to kind of give the impression to the bird that you meant it no harm. And that's what we do with all the animals out here. We try to move slowly towards them, and we try and do it as quietly and in a way that doesn't make any kind of noise and makes them think that we're not a threat or a predator. Now, a predator, of course, would be something like a lion or a leopard, which would behave in a certain way. So, for example, with those buffalo, if there was a lion or a leopard there, it would be hiding behind a rock or behind a tree, trying to see where the buffalo were going. And if the buffalo spotted it, then they would be very scared and they'd probably run away. Now, if you're a human being and you're walking and you see a buffalo, if you duck behind a tree and hide from it, then the buffalo thinks that you are behaving like a predator. But if you keep walking and you walk away and you're quiet and you don't make like you're moving towards the animal, then it doesn't feel threatened by you. So that's how we try and make animals unafraid of us. But of course, a car like this, we're in a vehicle and it makes a big noise and it smells very funny. And so the animals can be a little bit scared, but then after a while they get used to the vehicle. Right, let's drive along here. Hello, Brooke. You want to know if people ride the animals here? Brooke, no, you can't ride the animals out here. The animals here are not like domestic animals. In the same way that you don't go around the corner in Virginia Beach and climb on a white-tailed deer or on an elk or something like that, you know that they wouldn't let you do that. They're not like ponies. So no, we don't ride the animals out here. There are parts of the world where domestic animals or wild we know that they ride elephants in India, of course, and we also know that there have been times when zebra, you know what a zebra is, it's like a stripy pony, when they have been ridden by people. But no, out here we don't ride any of the animals. We actually try and have as little effect on their lives as possible. So we don't touch any of the animals, we don't interfere with nature for as much as possible. Sometimes it's very hard not to interfere. Niall, somebody's been telling you what in this country is known as a pork pie. There's an elephant. That's very exciting. It's a young elephant bull, everyone. Niall, I'll get back to your question now. Isn't that nice? Now, he's huge. None of you, can you see where his front leg meets his body? That's his elbow. None of you would be as tall as his elbow. You'd all be able to walk straight underneath him. That's how big he is. I imagine Mr. Parker, Mrs. Cahoon, Mrs. Gallop, and Mrs. Murray would they wouldn't be able to walk. They'd probably reach about a third of the way up his body. That's about how tall he is. Now, Andrew, you want to know what an elephant weighs. Well, Andrew, you know that you don't weigh the same as your dad. You weigh much less than your dad, unless your dad is very small and you've been eating too many McDonald's burgers, but I don't think that's the case. And so it's difficult to answer. A little elephant, when it's born, Andrew, weighs about 220 pounds, if you can believe it. 220 pounds when it's born. Now, the average human being, of course, weighs, I think, in pounds about maybe 12 pounds. It's quite a big baby, about 12 pounds, so it's really enormous. And then a big male elephant, a big bull elephant, when he's fully grown, will weigh 6 tons. Now, 6 tons is about 14,000 pounds. Can you believe that? 14,000 pounds. Now, this one is probably about, I'd say he's about maybe 17 or 18 years old, so he's probably about 4.5 tons, which is about 10,000 pounds. So even though he's not as big as he is going to get, he's still very big and still much heavier than any other animal out here. Wood, you can see they eat quite a lot of wood, do our elephant friends. And Seth, you want to know if we feed the animals. Well, Seth, you can see we don't have to feed the animals. That's done by nature. Sometimes if it gets very, very dry and all the grass dies and all the leaves have fallen off the trees, then we do what we call provide a salt lick. And a salt lick is like a great big block of salt. And we just pop that down, and sometimes some of the animals come and lick that. But that's very seldom that we do that. Mostly there's plenty of there's plenty of food out here for the animals to eat. And in the case of an elephant, Seth, do you know how much they eat every day? A big bull elephant, when this chap is finished growing, and that will, well, he'll never finish growing, they grow until they die, but when he's about 35 years old, he will eat about 660 pounds of food every day. Isn't that a lot? 660 pounds of food every single day. Now I imagine that most of you probably don't weigh as much as 60 pounds. You probably weigh about 40 pounds. So imagine 10 of you gathering in fact 12 or 13 of you gathering together and weighing yourselves together. That's what an elephant eats in one day. Isn't that amazing? Here he comes. You see how he opened his ears there? That's because he's listening to my voice. I'm speaking quite loudly. And there he is, just walking with the setting sun behind him. Isn't that pretty? And you can't even hear him walk. We've got very good microphones on the camera, and I'm just going to be quiet. Just have a listen, see if you can hear him. Can you hear him? Might just be able to hear him scraping past that bush there. And otherwise all you heard was what's called a crested francolin. Tick-a-dare, 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 tick-a-dare. The elephant, despite its enormous size, is able to move so very quietly. And look how cleverly he disappears. You see how brilliantly coloured he is. A grey is a very good colour. Beverly, you want to know if it's really hot or really cold here. Well, Beverly, it's not freezing, but we are going into winter, and that means it's going to get pretty chilly around here. Our minimum temperature every year is about 4 degrees Celsius, which in your language is about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But in summer it's very, very hot here. It goes up to 106 degrees sometimes, 106 degrees Fahrenheit, so then it gets very hot. But at the moment we're in winter, so it'll go between 50 degrees in the early morning and about 2 o'clock in the afternoon it can be at around 75 to 76 degrees Celsius, at least Fahrenheit. Now he's digging, you see, he's digging with his foot. Let's move a little bit forward. We might get another view of him, otherwise we'll leave him be. There we go. Now he's shaking his head there because he doesn't like the sound of the vehicle. So that was a shake. It's exactly the same as one of you getting cross with each other, and maybe you kind of, you know, when you shake your hands together and you go, that's basically what he was doing there, saying, I don't like the sound of that car. And then when we turned off, he became calm. Alyssa, you say, do we ever pet the animals out here? No, Alyssa, we're in a wild area here. We can't pet the animals. None of them will let us get close enough. And we don't want to get close enough. We don't want for them to think of us as we don't want to be out of a wild system. We want this to be as wild as possible. You know, we don't want the animals to become too familiar with us, because wild animals, when they get too familiar with human beings, they can become dangerous. And that, of course, is the very last thing in the world that we want. Now you can see it's probably about 20 past 5 in the afternoon. So it's not late, but you can see the sun has already set. And out here, where you are, when the sun goes down, you've probably still got quite a lot of light left. And you call that twilight. Out here, when the sun goes down, it's almost like a light switch going off. We only get about 20 to 25 minutes of light before it's completely pitch dark and the starry African sky starts to twinkle above our heads. All right, Brian, shall we move on? Yes. We'll say goodbye to our elephant friend. He's disappearing into the bush there, finding his supper. And of course he's all on his own, because the males do live on their own. Often the young males like that will have a few friends that they move around with, But he obviously, maybe he's had a fight with his friends, and that's why he's on his own. Let's go across to Jamie, find out what she's looking at, and I'll head along in this direction.
It's starting to get a little bit colder now as the sun sets and it starts to get dark, and it's the perfect time for leopards and lions to get up and start stretching, maybe yawn a few times, lick their paws, and then get up to start their nightly hunting. There are lions and leopards will move about during the day, but mostly they are nocturnal animals, which means that they do most of their walking about and hunting at night. Don't quite know what's making me sneeze quite so much. William, the lion population stays roughly the same because there's something called a carrying capacity. In other words, if you have too many lions, then there's not enough food to support them, and there's just too many in one area for access to resources, and they start to get into big fights with each other in order to find themselves a nice territory. So the lion population has stayed very sort of, there's little ups and downs the whole time. However, because we're in a drought at the moment, it means that all of the animals have to go to limited places to go to the water hole. What that means is that the lions can lie and wait around the water hole, and life becomes a lot easier for them because they don't have to go too far away in order to look for food, and they know that the food will have to come to them. And I think I might need to sneeze again. I don't know where this came from. I think it's hay fever. Taken me completely by surprise. Male trying to establish himself, or a couple of males trying to establish themselves in a territory. And sometimes when that happens, if they do kill a lion, they might eat a little bit of it, but they're not killing for food. They are killing because they want to get rid of the competition, and so that they can have a chance for their own cubs to survive and not the cubs of other lions. So it might seem really sad situation, but it's important because it keeps the lions from mating with their mothers and their sisters and their granddaughters or anything like that, and make sure that the genes are kept nice and fresh, because they're wild animals, so they make sure that they move about a lot and don't inbreed. Unfortunately for the students at Rosemont, your safari has come to an end. I'm going to have to say goodbye to you all. I hope that one day you'll have a chance to go on a real safari, or at least come and join us on the back of our safari once again. Have a wonderful rest of your school drive, and I'm going to send you back across to James. Bye-bye.
So we've just come along basically back towards Buffelshoek Dam, everyone. Just one final road that I haven't driven yet to see if maybe those lions don't pop out there. And then we'll head back towards the west. Of course, we now need some lighting, given that the hour is dark, Brian, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. Let's check out this powerful spotlight. That's how we spotlight, isn't it, Brian?
It is. I've also joined it in here.
Very effective. Look, yes, we'll spot everything with these spotlights, won't we? I'm just going to be quiet for a second because I've missed this sound. It's the drongos making their last call. And they're imitating various other birds, and often they like to imitate the pearl-spotted owl, but they just do a little piece of the call, they don't do the whole thing. And you know what it's doing? Can you hear it going? Pew, 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 pew. It's doing that's a magpie shrike it's trying to be. Sorry, Cool Abe, I'm going to ask you, Kirsten, for your question again. I'm afraid I missed it. Cool Abe, you want to know if we get drongos? Well, that's them there, yes, calling. The fork-tailed drongo. I'll try and find you one. You know, Cool Abe, at this time of the year, or this time of the day, sorry, they often sit on the ground. Just as it gets dark, they'll sit in an open clearing, and the road is in, well, sort of unnatural clearing, but they will sit in a clearing like this. So we may well see the black shape of a fork-tailed drongo sitting on the road in front of us. Perchance a chameleon. I saw 3 chameleons on the second last drive that I did. Something is in this bush. It's not a leopard, everyone. What is that, Brian? You see what I'm looking at? Down a bit? What's that white bit? Oh dear, I'm going to have to look. I bet I'm going to embarrass myself horribly because I almost guarantee you that it's nothing worth looking at. Lions. A long way away. Sounds like could be at Sydney's Dam, maybe. Anyway. It's not nothing at all. It's an egg sac. It's an egg sac of a spider, I think. And, no, not a spider. It could be a spider. I don't know. I don't know what kind of an egg sac it is. Definitely an egg sac. And the clever adult has pulled leaves over it so you wouldn't really see it. And that's why it looks like a sort of piece of nougat. See that, Brian? Delicious nougat.
Delicious.
You like nougat?
I do.
No, I do too. Many people do not, of course. They're the sort of people that like marshmallows. Do you like marshmallows?
On the occasion.
No, Brian.
Sorry,
Disgusting. Do you like meringues?
Probably the last time I had a meringue.
Yes. Meringues. And please, just remember, you can still send in questions. The school kids are away. They're probably in maths class, fast asleep. But for those of you who are not, please do send through your questions. #Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. We have another half hour or so of the drive. And often these night drives can be quite quiet, but we may be lucky to see something. We may see a lion or a leopard or a genet or a civet, even if we're very lucky. A badger, perhaps. Jamie had an African wildcat the other day, but that was in the middle of the day, which is absolutely incredible. But when we don't see such things, it's always a nice opportunity to talk about other aspects of safari or Africa, clear up any misconceptions about Africa you might have, about the people of this great continent, or whatever else there might be to say. There are 2 steenbok, which we can't shine on. Just remember, we won't shine the lights on diurnal animals active during the day. We don't want to give the predators an unfair advantage, and likewise, if we do find a predator that is hunting, we will not shine on that either. I don't remember the last time I spotted a chameleon live. The last 3 that I saw, we were coming back from Cheetah Plains after we'd closed down. You guys were all having your dinner or your lunch, depending on where you are in the world. And I spotted 3 and there were no witnesses. David refused to tell anybody when we got home. It was all very embarrassing. Oh well. Brian, you wouldn't do that to me, would you?
No, never do.
No, you wouldn't. No.
Celebrate your findings.
Exactly. You would revel in my success. Oh, lovely question from Aaron in New Zealand. You want to know what I think of Sindile's release? I'm not clearing my voice because of the question. I'm clearing because I've got fog in it. Aaron, I'm quite excited about it. I'm apprehensive because I don't know that he will survive, because I think it's a difficult area for him to come into, given the number of leopards that there are in this area. There's something up ahead of us there, other than the tree that nearly decapitated me. Oh, jeepers, I'm being attacked by the aerial. Hang on. Oh, it's a duiker. I'm just going to put this down, everybody, before it takes out my eyes. That would be very unpleasant, Brian.
Would be.
I met a one-eyed man 2 nights ago, actually. He had a glass eye. It's very strange. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with the current topic of discussion. So, Aaron, I'm a little worried about him because obviously there are lots of male leopards here, there are lots of other leopards here. It's quite a densely populated leopard area. So I don't know that he'll survive. On the other hand, I think it's really exciting, and I know that it hasn't been attempted too often, where a male leopard is simply released into the wild again to see if he can fend for himself. I think that the chances are pretty good that he will be able to. Will he become territorial in this area? Well, I don't know about that. He's already moved a pretty substantial difference. I was worried about his level of fitness, level of physical fitness, because obviously he's been in an enclosure for the last 6 months. And that means, of course, that he hasn't been moving around. Now, the cats don't move around if they can avoid it, but out here they can't avoid it. They have to move around. And so, yeah, I don't know about, it seems that he's already moved, many tens of kilometers, so maybe his fitness is not an issue. He's, I mean, we're in such early days. What are we? We're about a week after his release, maybe a bit more. But we'll keep you posted. I got to tell you, I had visions of driving around a corner and finding him, and I mean, we'll easily recognize him because I think he's got a collar on him, and so we'll very easily recognize him, even though he'll be substantially larger than when we last saw him. And that would be, well, that would just be very exciting, wouldn't it? So, let's see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen when he meets his mother. I guess it's fairly inevitable that he will meet his mum. I think leopards are a bit more intelligent than many of the others, cats, and I suspect that they may well recognize each other. I don't think that will necessarily result in a great and affectionate reunion, but certainly I think they may well recognize each other, and that will reduce any aggression that there might be. Right, well, I continue to look hopelessly for chameleons. Let's head across to Jamie and hang on 1 second. It's a leaf. Across to Jamie to see if she can't find you something other than a leaf.
James is a brave man searching for hyenas, chameleons at this time of year. I don't think first of all, I didn't see that many in summer. We've only really had a few good chameleon sightings. Most of them are hiding up at the moment. It's a little bit cold. Oh, leave. Oh, come on, Rusty. Here we go. It was far too difficult. Apart from the fact that Rusty sounds like some kind of Harley Davidson or something going up the hills. Now, while James is on a chameleon search, I am making a concerted effort for aardvark. I've come to the places where we regularly see aardvark tracks, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because, as most of you will know, I have yet to see an aardvark in the wild. It's one of those bizarre things. It's just become the animal that seems to try and evade me no matter what I do or where I search. And I'm hoping that tonight might change all of that. I'm going to check all of the old aardvark burrows that I know have been active in the past, where I've seen the freshly dug areas. But we have a surprise for you. James has something up his sleeve. It is not a chameleon, but something entirely different. We'll go and have a look at James's largest cat.
Look, Brian, look in the tree over there. It's a lion. She was calling, everybody. As we came round the corner, she was calling I think in response to the one that I heard, unless the one that I did hear was just the end of her first call. She was making a lovely call, and I'm pretty sure these are the tracks that we saw a little bit earlier. She is, of course, now gone to sleep. I suspect she'll call again while she's just lying there. Let's move a little bit closer. We'll just go around the corner here, because to hear a lion in close proximity calling is amazing, male or female. Some people will tell you they can tell the difference between the calls. I maintain that I can't. I don't know the difference. Unless you hear them next to each other. If I hear them next to each other, I can tell the difference. Is that all right, Brian? She's hearing another one. Do you see how her ears were pinned back as we pulled in here? Now she's turned her head to where she's heard something. Maybe she'll call again. It would be so wonderful. First night back, lion calling. Who is this? Who is this? This is not Amber Eyes. I mean, I'm 95% sure that this is a member of the Nkuhuma Pride. She's got the slightly pinkish nose, that's the one. She's lovely, isn't she? Looks... Listen, here we go. It wasn't very impressive. It was like a little burp. Okay, now everybody, before, if she does call again, what I would very much like you to do is turn up your speakers as loud as you can, and then shut your eyes. Whenever I had guests on the back of the car, what I would do is kill the lights as the lion started to call. And at night, that can be, if you're not prepared for it, it can be tremendously eerie, with the sound of a lion's roar echoing around you. And so try and recreate that experience for yourselves. If you've got good headphones, put them in, and then turn them up loud when she calls again, because it really is a tremendously loud sound. If you're sitting this distance from her, we're about, here we go. Isn't that cool? I'm just going to call it in quickly, everybody.
Cut line, Forward Junction, and another line audio around about the access to Bubbles of Dam from Bubbles of Cut line.
They can hear this line. Stations, I've just located that other lioness. She is about 200 meters from the junction with Quarry Pan Road and Buffelshoek Dam. She's in those little clearings there, visible from the road. So there's another one calling from Mvubu Road. So Sandy, very nice question from you, of course, while we're sitting here with this lioness. You say, can she call as loudly as a male? I'd have to say, especially having just heard her call, no. I don't think she can. It's certainly, it's loud, it's an impressive sound, and it would have travelled probably at least, say, 3 miles. But yeah, a male will travel further. So I'm just trying to find out on the radio what's going on here. Sorry, are any stations making their way to this lioness off Gwaripan Road? Okay, copy that. So we'll sit with her and see what she does from now, I think. And we'll just see if we can't hear another lioness answering her. So just to keep you updated, I keep going silent because the radio goes. There is a lion that has been found close to the junction of Mvubu Road and the Buffelshoek Cut Line, which from where we're sitting now is about 2 kilometers, which is about 1.2 miles towards the sort of setting sun, towards the west. So basically, if you look behind your head, basically, if you imagine your head, you're facing east now, and then there's another one. Steph's heard another sort of bout of activity around the Djuma Dam, which is the same distance in a southwesterly direction. So it sounds like there are 3 or 4 lions around the place. Obviously they're all calling and trying to get into contact with each other. Now, I don't know how many of you managed to shut your eyes and turn up your sound, but I hope you did. And I know many of you thought that the sound was amazing. It is. There are a few things in life, of course, around Africa that, I mean, there are thousands, but there are very few things like an African sunset or a lion's call at sunset that really give you a kind of touch or a feeling of this great continent. Now this other lion is calling, they say. I'm hearing on the radio basically where I described it. So Jamie's quite close to there. I think she'll probably head that direction and see if she can't find whatever is calling there. But this particular one didn't respond at all there. She didn't respond at all, did she? She was just lying there, Brian, exhausted after calling once. You just see her eyes moving slightly. And Aaron, you turned up your headphones there in New Zealand and you said it was amazing. It is. It really is a heart-stopping sound, especially if you are in the dark of an African night with just the odd star providing prickles of light overhead. But to hear that in the pitch-black darkness when you can't see anything is just an astounding sound. Now, is this the mother? Well, I don't know. It could be. She's come out of Torchwood, which we know is the area where the cubs are, but we won't know that until she flips over and we can see whether she's suckling or not. I'm just going to talk to Mike on the radio. He's trying to get in here. Go ahead, Mike. No, Mike, it's on Gwaripan Road, so come from Buffelshoek Dam towards Gwaripan Road.
Okay, copy that, thank you.
Yeah, she can hear a lion calling again, definitely. That's why she's picked her head up. Now, I can't hear that from where I'm sitting. So she's very clearly got much, much better ears than we do. See if she responds. There we go. Isn't that just fantastic? And I don't know if you could hear it. I mean, it's slightly not as loud, or slightly less loud than a male's call, but it's unbelievably impressive. And the other thing that, I mean, each lion has got a fairly distinctive sort of tone to their call, and they can recognize each other's calls. But one of the distinctive things about her call is that when she breathes in again, her entire rib cage, you can hear it moving. It goes, so she breathes out, she exhales and pushes the air out through her voice box, and it makes a tremendous rasping sound. Then as she sucks the air in again, you can actually hear her rib cage moving back, going kind of thumping back into place. And that'll be distinctive to her. I've not heard it in another lioness. I heard a lion call on the weekend at Pinder, a big male lion. And he had a kind of, you know, when they get to the end of their call and they go, oh, oh, oh. He had a kind of double at the end. He went, oh, 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 oh. So he was completely distinctive. She's not very impressed by my impression there, Brian. You see that?
Yeah, I did.
Rank amateur is what her eyes said to me there. So we've got a fairly dim light on her, everyone, and that's because unless she's moving through the bush and we're desperately trying to keep with her, it's much better to just leave her in slightly dimmer light rather than put this very bright spotlight on her. So her colour is not quite what you think it is. Might be time for a picular, Brian.
Ooh.
Hello, Mike. While we wait and see if she doesn't call again before we have to leave you, you want to know how far can a lion walk in the night? Well, Mike, a lion can walk far. In this area, they don't walk very far. In this area, probably no more than 5 kilometers or so, which is really impossible. I'm really going to have to work out my conversions again. Say 3.5 miles, Mike. Be unlikely that she'd move much more than 3.5 miles in a night. But potentially, I mean, in an area like the Kalahari, you'll find big male lions moving at least sort of, I don't know, up to 25 kilometers sometimes, which of course is, well, that's pretty far. Yes. Jamie's still looking to see if she can't find the other one, because it keeps calling from somewhere around Vuyatela Dam. And in fact, the other lioness has created a great conflagration of people trying to find. Somebody else is coming this way. Yes, you can see she's sorry, you can hear that she's calling. Now, stations just come straight down Gwaripan Road. You'll get us visual on the eastern side of the road. I hope she calls again. It is just the most wonderful sound. And it's territorial. People often say, oh, is she hunting when she starts roaring, which of course, if you think about it, is not really sensible, because they're stalking hunters. She doesn't want to let everyone know that she's around, so she's clearly not hunting. And from her sort of the fact that she's alone and she's looking around and listening, it tells me that she's trying to find where the rest of the pride are. The fact that she's not moving towards them makes me think that maybe she is the mother. Does anybody know which female gave birth? I don't think it was Amber Eyes, although I think she was pregnant. So it could well be this one. And I suspect, her torchwood is basically behind her. And I wonder if her reticence to move is because her cubs are there. Here she goes again. So cool. Isn't that lovely? It was a very half-hearted call there, sort of yawn call. And all around us the winter night is starting to sound, so there's very little sound at all. There's just a few crickets. And I can just hear the tip, tip, tip of bats flying above us. But otherwise, very quiet. And she's listening. I think she'll start to move at some stage during the night. Well, she doesn't look that enthusiastic about movement at the moment. Here we go. I don't know, Brian, did you hear the ribs going chink, chink? You hear that?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the cartilage in her ribs sort of slipping back.
Yeah, after every roll. Ooh,
Yeah.
chink.
And that's very distinctive. I've not heard it before. So that'll distinguish her. If we hear a lion calling in the distance, that's who we'll know. That's how we'll know if it's her or not. So here come two other vehicles, which is absolutely fine. Especially as it made her show us her pretty face like that. Oh, and there's a Scops owl calling behind us. Move straight in, guys. Come round the back of me, and then you'll get a good view. So that's just me talking on the radio. If you are a new viewer, we are in constant radio contact with a number of other game drives that drive on this reserve and on other reserves. And so when we find sightings, we share them, and likewise everyone else shares the sightings that they have as well. Move forward with pleasure if you want.
Thank you very much.
Let's see if she calls again, everyone. It'll be a nice closing for our drive. Oh, here we go. Let's look underneath her. She doesn't seem to have very swollen teats. Move back a bit so that Mike's guests can see. Now everybody, just before we leave you, which will be in 1.5 minutes, remember tomorrow morning we're going to start half an hour later. So the drive will start at 6:30 our time. The intimidating number of time zones that you all exist in precludes me telling you what time that will be, but it'll be 30 minutes later than we had today. And that will probably be for the next 60 days or so as we go towards August. Now I'm not going to move because we've only got a minute left, and let's just see if she calls nicely again. She's obviously decided to position here better the other lions that have been calling. Wonderful picture there. Alright everyone, that's going to be it from us, and we'll see you tomorrow at 06:30. Thank you, Brian, for your efforts today. Welcome back from leave. Welcome back to Kirsten. Big thank you to Kirsten, of course. Final control with Cheesecake Cherry and Steph briefly today, and Jamie out with Jean-Andre, I think it was. We'll see you tomorrow at 06:30. Wonderful to be back here in the bush with you, and what a treat to have these lions calling. See you at dawn.